Considered a promotional material for the upcoming game Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, this 8-bit version, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, was developed by Inti Creates as a stretch goal, and was recently released to Steam, PS4, Switch, 3DS, and Vita for $10. The game is a complete throwback to the NES Castlevania games, with some added flair, specifically Castlevania 3, as you play through some expansive levels with multiple paths, using your character's strengths and abilities to fight your way past challenging pitfalls and monstrous bosses to find your way to the final boss. The game includes some alternate modes to lessen difficulty for newcomers, as well as 2 other unlockable game modes, granting a surprising amount of replayability and a fascinating and hopeful glimpse at this replacement Castlevania universe. If you clamor for the harder and less forgiving nature of the NES Castlevania days, Curse of the Moon is a game more than worth checking out. That's not all you want to hear, is it?
If you even have the slightest interest in checking this game out and think it's something you would enjoy, then by all means, go do so and come back here and watch this later if you want. We're heading into spoiler territory now, so unless you just don't concern yourself with story snippets and surprises from this game, I would highly suggest you play it first. Otherwise, let's get into the reason that I bought this game twice, despite the fact that I'm getting it for free.
Okay, technically I wasn't getting this game for free. I backed Bloodstained Ritual of the Night at a ridiculous level. How ridiculous? Maybe later. As for now, I never really thought too deeply about this project. I'm aware that this is not the game that I backed, it's just a side project bonus goal, but I am a backer, so make of that what you will.
I can honestly say that I am pleasantly surprised with how this game turned out despite being a simple side project. And I am nowhere near the level of salty as some of the backers of this game have been. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Now when I say NES art style, that's easily the look they were going for. But since we aren't working with 30-year-old hardware here, the style gives way to plenty of flashy effects and complicated sprites that just would not have worked on the NES without the system catching fire and spitting the cart back into your face. Basically, think about the level of detail and effects in Shovel Knight, and you'll be on the right track. Nothing in the game slows down on any system I'd played it on, so it's all solid work.
While the bosses are certainly impressive for their scale and design, it's the enemy design that can be downright disturbing and clever for an 8-bit tile set. The chimeras that split open their bodies to fire out shots got the biggest squick out of me.
The game's music can be very catchy. It's rather NES era and even pretty Castlevania feeling, as one would expect. But while I like some of the tracks a lot more than the others, there's nothing really that grabs me to the level of Vampire Hunter, Wicked Child, or Heart of Fire. Sound effects are also kind of NES+. In fact, the noise that takes place for certain hits on enemies sounds like something I'd heard in Mega Man 3. I think Inti Creates might have some of those sound assets left over from Mega Man 9. That NES Plus comes in place with the voice clips from the characters. Yeah, they are simple grunts when you're hit, but they're clearly voice-acted grunts, and they're not synthed in, which would have been impossible on the NES. I didn't really notice it until I'd paid attention, though. As I've said to an annoying repetitiveness, this game is very much in the style of an NES Castlevania, not just in look and sound. It's a Castlevania 3 clone in gameplay as well. You walk through semi-linear halls, have slower short-range regular attacks, energy-consuming sub-weapons, committed unmovable jump arcs, and some really unforgiving platforming and enemy placements. It's very much classic Castlevania, with nary a Metroid influence in sight.
So yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube and you saw that clickbaity title I put down, yeah, I'm directly referencing my first review on A Robot Named Fight. Calling back to my first episode on my third one. What am I, the Clerks cartoon?
One thing of note is that this game offers up a simpler mode when you start. No, that's not normal mode, I'll get into that, but it's the ability to choose between veteran and casual when loading up your save file, with veteran having a live system and knockback when struck by enemies, and casual removing both.
You aren't penalized for choosing casual any more than you're rewarded for choosing veteran, and you can switch between the two anytime you load your save file. It's really just more of a challenge for those who miss the original feel of the games, without potentially turning away anyone who's a little out of touch with the interesting design choices the old Castlevania games made.
As this is very similar to Castlevania 3, and you switch through multiple characters once unlocked, each character has their own health pool, some larger than others, but you can instantly switch between them at any time. Keep in mind, though, that if you find a health pickup, potentially confusingly represented as a heart in this game, you'll have to switch to whatever character is missing health to restore it. Even though health is separated for each character, the weapon energy you collect is not, and on Veteran mode it's capped at a very low 20 points until you locate upgrades. Using weapons properly is key to victory, and replenishing weapon energy is the most likely thing that you'll find within the lamps, but you'll still run out much faster than you'd think if you're going ham on your skills. If you lose all HP on one of your characters, you're set back to a checkpoint and you can't use that character or their abilities for the rest of the stage. If you kill off all of them, you'll lose a life, you know, provided you're playing on Veteran mode. Just assume I'm talking about Veteran mode. You start the game as Zangetsu, a staunch reminder that the NES Ninja Gaiden was a Castlevania clone.
What? It was. You didn't know that?
Zangetsu uses a short sword slash, and that's about it. He's the default character, unable to use any special traits to access alternate areas, but makes up for it with the quickest attacks and largest health pool. This makes Zangetsu an ideal tank for heading through simpler areas, or keeping him out to take the brunt of hits if all your other characters are low on health. Zangetsu's sub-weapon options consist of a chain whip that fires up at a 45-degree angle, a spell card thrown downward at the same angle that opens a damaging portal, and a damage-boosting aura that can be transferred to other characters when you switch. Miriam is the main character of the upcoming Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and as such, is probably the best character in the game. Miriam's health is only slightly less than Zangetsu, uses a slower whip with an absurdly long range, can jump much higher than any other character, and can perform a low slide by pressing down and jump. Her sub-weapons consist of a forward-facing dagger, upward-firing triple daggers, a boomerang scythe, and a massive axe with very slow wind-up, but could one-shot most of the stronger enemies. Miriam OP, never nerf. Alfred is an alchemist I never bothered to call anything but old man in my first playthrough, who has an absurdly small health pool, a pitifully short-range, slow-swinging staff, but the most destructive and overpowered sub-weapons in the game. Basically, this game's Sypha. He defaults to an amazing fire shield which can protect him from most any projectile and weaker enemy, which can also be transferred to any other character when switching. His weakest skill, a clone projection, only serves to extend his range but does little else to assist you, and honestly is best avoided, unless you all know something about that skill I don't. Contrast this with his ice arrow, which travels the screen, eliminates projectiles, and freezes anything in its path, including most bosses. Minor and major enemies, as well as lamps, can be frozen into blocks to stand on, or shattered with his staff to very likely drop some more weapon power. Finally, a skill only found in green lamps, Alfred's lightning spell can be cast to have 3 on screen at once, seeking out and damaging any enemies on screen. Though, as you can imagine, it eats through mana pretty intensely, but it's great for damaging bosses that love to stay out of reach. He's probably someone you'll relegate to the sidelines most often, but remember to pull him out in a pinch and he can make some of the most frustrating areas and enemies a complete cakewalk. Jeeble, yes, it's supposed to be pronounced Jeeble, will be your Alucard for this adventure. He tosses out 3 crystal bats in an upward formation, but is powerless against his one true weakness: things slightly below him! Jeeble also forgoes any sub-weapons in exchange for the ability to transform into a bat and fly as long as you have weapon power. You'll most need him for reaching some alternate areas out of reach, but he can be pretty clutch in moments you wouldn't expect him to be. Though the stages are linear, allies will allow you the option to take alternate paths as Zangetsu wouldn't be able to reach on his own, allowing you to complete stages far faster, find bonus upgrades, or just end up on a path that won't force you to pull your hair out. Miriam is most notably needed for reaching higher walls or squeezing through small paths, but Jeeble can also replace her in either of these tasks in a pinch in the event you've lost Miriam for the stage. Unfortunately, you can't enter previous stages with your earned allies in tow, but there's something about that which will come into play a bit later.
As much as I said I love the bosses in this game, they can be a bit hit and miss. Some are absurdly memorable and fun fights, while others feel like cheap-shot-laden frustration fests until you get their patterns down. Also, remember those final revenge hits that some of the bosses in Rondo of Blood would do? Yeah, they're back in this game in a big way.
It's not like these attacks will really matter that much. They can't kill you, even though you can avoid all of them if you know what to do. Hide behind the train boss's coal stack instead of climbing on top. Jump high enough to avoid the final dash of the turtle boss. Jump over Cyber Peacock here, then move as close to the side lightning as possible. The most clever one, the Blood Demon, looks unavoidable until you realize you can avoid taking hits on the side, then climb up to the third parasol, hit the face in the vortex, and you'll pass right through it.
As much as I think this game's difficulty is ramped up in a fair pace, the final stage is a bit of a garbage fire without any foreknowledge of what's happening. There's plenty of areas that you'll need to know what's about to happen before it does, or have some pinpoint platforming movements in order to get through it without a scratch. I'm way better at it now, but yeah, it's not one I look forward to when I play it again.
Hell, even the final boss is a two-stage fight that requires some foreknowledge. The first part is pretty easy enough. Just attack her when she's near and avoid the flies that spawn in after she makes a hand gesture. That gesture will signal the path where the flies are spawning in from, too. Is the hand on the left side raised, go to a platform to the right and they'll sail over you. Are both hands raised, stay in the middle and they'll all fly over you. Once that form is down, the real fight has you avoiding attacks in an attempt to reach her weak point.
Or you can just fly over into this section with Jeeble, get Alfred's lightning spell, and just cheese her final form. Whatever works for you.
Of course, the fact of the matter is, the final boss really isn't the final boss. Defeating her is Zangetsu spare his new allies by taking in the darkness himself, and transforming him into the new Demon Lord, unlocking Nightmare Mode. Nightmare Mode serves as a hard mode in several manners. One, since Zangetsu is now your target and not your ally, you're down to Miriam, Alfred, and Jeeble, cutting your playable characters down by one, removing an entire health pool. Enemies seem to hit a bit harder, and the bosses also have new and quicker attacks, forcing you to learn some new patterns.
So, you can imagine that final stage I despise would become downright unplayable in this new harder mode with less characters, right? Well, it is, but not for the reason you're thinking.
The reason? It doesn't exist. With Zangetsu the new master of the castle, he's done an overhaul of the place, with fancy new Japanese decor and themed stages for every allied character to play through. Alone. Yes, even Alfred. Fun times all around. The showdown with Zangetsu plays out a bit more thematically, and it's probably wise to know that only weapons for Miriam will drop in the previous room. There's a reason for that, and you'll figure it out pretty fast. Finish off the new final boss and you'll get the true ending, though you might notice there's one more mode to unlock. One that unlocks in a manner that you wouldn't expect it to. While playing through normal mode, perhaps you'd feel that Zangetsu is a strong independent demon slayer that don't need no old man, so instead of greeting your newly released allies, you stab the shit out of them. Doing so will gain you a new permanent move, an arcing jump slash for killing Miriam, a double jump for killing Alfred, and a speed boost for killing Jeeble. With the 3 new moves in tow, Zangetsu becomes a far more powerful and useful character, but forgoes his ability to gain any of the health and weapon power upgrades, and will be forced to take many of the longer and more dangerous paths. It's a lot harder than playing with your allies in tow, but managing to go solo will net you the bad end, as well as unlocking Ultimate Mode. Ultimate Mode is a playthrough of the game similar to Nightmare Mode, where the enemies and bosses are harder, even the original Normal Mode's final boss, but you'll have all of your allies back when you unlock them again, but Zangetsu will have all the powers you'd have to unlock by killing them right from the start. No, you don't get more powers by killing them again. Also, if you change your mind mid-playthrough and feel terrible about shanking your waifu, using the Curse of the Moon option in the pause menu will allow you to travel back to any previous stage, but you won't keep any allies or upgrades you found. It's a true time reversal, it will only allow you to retry for a missed upgrade or undo killing an ally, so keep that in mind. Unlocking all the modes also grants you Boss Rush mode, which has Veteran on by default. You can only choose 1 power per boss, and health doesn't regenerate, giving you only 2 large heart pickups to kill every boss with. Beating the mode is pointless, but hey, it's there if you ran out of things to do.
I have to say, even ignoring the game was made as a promotional side project, Curse of the Moon does more than well enough to stand up on its own. It's a fun and challenging platformer that feels fair, even if it might not feel that way at times. It does give me a lot of hope for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night's eventual release. Really hoping 2018 is still feasible. Curse of the Moon earns a solid Go rating from me. If you want to relive the old school Castlevania days, this is the closest thing I've seen to it in a long time that's truly captured that spirit. And despite the shorter length, it's more than worth the $10 on any platform that you prefer to play it on. So much so that I'm getting a backer code for the Switch coming soon, and yet I still went out and paid $10 for it. So yeah, I'm sold. Once again, I'd like to thank you for making the stop, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.
So, what did you think of Curse of the Moon? Excellent Castlevania 3 tribute, pointless side project, or are you still super salty backer that didn't get a console code yet? Or do you not think this even counts as an indie game? Rant about whatever in the comments, and seriously, let me know what you think. Come check me out on twitch.tv/chaosd1 if you're wondering why I'm not bothering with YouTube much these days, and you can even watch Indie Stop debut on there live on the appropriate Friday at noon Eastern, right before it goes officially live on YouTube. Again, I'm more than willing to hear suggestions for indie games you want to see covered in the show. I have no shortage of potential titles to look at, but I am always up for new stuff and suggestions. Hell, I think I bought like 3 recently and I haven't even started playing them yet. If you want to sweeten the pot, I have my Patreon you can choose to support the show with at tiers specific to Indie Stop and MMO Grinder, like early access to Indie Stop episodes before they go up on the Friday time slot, giving direct suggestions to me, more or less forcing your way into the queue, or have me make a pain attempt to pronounce your name in the credits. Once again, I'd like to give a verbal thank you to my raid leader and higher supporters, Nate McPherson, Neander, Kaismay, Gabe Darksmiller, Sonic Rose, and A. Smith. If you're sad I haven't gone negative in a bit, you'll have a grand old time with the next episode, because I'm not exactly giving it a warm reception.